This is the Dreyer Drive podcast. Welcome. This is a podcast all about siblings and the people, places, and pop culture that raised us. And by us, I mean all of us. All of us were raised by all of these things that we talk about in this podcast. In today's episode, you'll hear about how Jacqueline framed one of my childhood best friends by vandalizing somebody else's personal property. You'll also hear about Jacqueline's extremely controversial Instagram post that sent the socials ablaze. And then we'll talk a little bit about our musical influences and some of the musicians that raised us. Finally, we will dive into today's topic, which is Prince William and Prince Harry, the heir and the spare. And you'll learn all about what that means in today's episode. Let's get into this.
I had a friend text me today and she sent me a picture of, you know, when you're listening on like Apple CarPlay in your car. And she sent me a picture and it had the Dreyer Drive up and it was the episode about whatever one we talked about our favorite outfits. So the Adidas one.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm listening right now and I feel so connected to your brother because I think we had the same outfit in school. And I was like, this is what I want. I want this level of connection with everybody. But I was like, I wanted to be like, well, wait until you hear this other part. But I'm like, I don't even remember. I know we talked about some of these things, but it's been like a couple months ago now. And also all the episodes have run together in my mind and I can only remember like vaguely where we are a real 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon podcast and we have trouble staying on topic. So I can't remember which topic went in which episode anymore. My first job out of high school, like my first adult job, grown-up job, adult.
I always defer to grown-up.
Grown-up. We're going to grown-up. Actually, let me just tell this story first because it goes along with it. One time we were watching a movie at mom and dad's house and it was with my 2 older kids, but they were probably like 8 and 11 at the time. And the movie was Date Night with Tina Fey and Steve Carell. And at the very end of it, it's when they get like pulled into being spies. And they have to like figure out because they take someone's reservation at a restaurant and then they are mistaken for these people the entire time. It's like a mistaken identity and they have to be spies. And at the very end, Tina Fey has to go undercover as a stripper in a strip club. And my kids were watching and mom and dad got really weird about it. And dad said, Addie, Andrew, you can't watch this part. It's an adult film. And I was like, stop. And then mom said, yeah, double XL. And I was like, no, both of you are wrong. Stop. Adult films. Anytime we see a movie that's like above a PG-13, I'm like, sorry, adult film, double XL, you can't watch it. But my first grown-up job out of high school was actually at a recording studio. And I was just like the receptionist, office manager, but they cut movie trailers. And so I'd listen to the guy with the voice, the movie trailer voice, say the same sentence over and over again over the course of like 3 hours and slowly go insane. And now I'm just back at the same place that we were before. Now I'm doing it to you. I'm passing it on to you. And I apologize because I know how annoying it is.
I actually enjoy it, right? Like I actually enjoy this piece of like going over the content, hearing how many times I say the word like, and
it's brutal.
It is brutal. You know what's hilarious is I now recognize, I know just by the visual wave, the sound wave, I can tell when you're about to take a breath. I can tell when you do a lip smack. I can tell a laugh from you. And so I imagine a world where one day there's a crime and you've gone missing and all we have is an audio file of a voice that some people believe is yours. And they come to your house and they play it for your family. And they're like, does this sound like your wife and your mother? And they're like, yeah, I don't know. It could be. You know who you need to talk to? Jacqueline's brother, Ryan. And they send me the audio file and I open it on my computer and I overlay it on one of our podcasts. And I'm like,
it's a match.
She's alive. She's alive. It's her because I can see
metronome in the background. Like we got to get to her fast.
And it's just you breathing, getting ready to laugh, which is a sound all on its own. So anyway, I have enjoyed the editing, actually. We've thrown out one episode, right? One day maybe that'll get released as bonus content, and we might throw out other episodes. Who knows? Because it's not always a hit. For those people who are just listening to this and thinking it's just a regular thing, we're not always like this. Sometimes we miss, and there has been stuff that's been thrown out.
Like I often say, we run a real loose ship around here, and pretty much anything's on the table at this point.
Let's be honest, it's a dinghy. Let's not even disrespect the ship. So it's a raft. It's like the thing that Tom Hanks makes in Castaway. He doesn't even make it 15 yards, and the thing just falls apart, and he loses Wilson. That's pretty much the scene that sums up this podcast and the preparation that goes into it. Now, you did mention one of your friends took a picture of us on Apple CarPlay in her car. I actually had a friend reach out to me. He left a comment on the Substack, so you can go and look at that for yourself on the Ninja Turtle episode. But it was actually the friend that I lied to about the Ninja Turtle, and he left a comment like, I was going to pledge for your Substack, but I'm still not over it.
Truly, the biggest delight out of all of this has been people from our past coming out of the woodwork to be like, I remember this, I was there, all of this. I'm like, this is so much fun to talk to all these people who have the same, because sometimes you're like, do I trust our collective memory? Like the five of us knew what was going on at Dreyer Drive, but then to have other people come out of the woodwork and be like, yeah, I remember it too, I was there, like, I love it.
Yeah, I remember puking in the back of your van. I remember that's the comment I want. Like, I'm so sorry. And he sends like a case of OxyClean, if that's still a thing, to mom and dad.
Just to add insult to injury, though, the friend who you stole the Michelangelo from is also the friend that one day he made me very upset about something. He had been over our house, and for some reason I was mad at him. So I carved his name into our dining room table so that mom would get upset at him.
And she hates him to this day.
So if he's out there listening, I apologize for that. If my mom treated you strangely after she found your name carved into our dining room table, it was me. And I do realize that that's a psychopath thing to do.
Well, I guess now's a good time to let you know I have done the same thing to their current table, just in case. For no reason whatsoever. I was like, let me just carve his name into this one as well. Make it feel like 20. Yeah, it's tradition now. We carry this one. So anyway, anything fun, new, exciting, wild, and crazy? Anything that you want to get out before we jump into our question and the topic for today?
I went on Friday, took my dog. We live on pretty high up on a mountain, and which means we have really good access to hiking trails or whatever. The town we live in is at 6,000 feet, and usually the trail that I take takes me up another 1,000 feet. So I have 1,000 feet gain. And because of that, the leaves change here pretty early because they're changing from the top down to the mountain. Ryan, as I posted a picture of me at the top of my trail saying like I had gone up. It was August 31st. Said, I went up here to see if the leaves were changing. The leaves have not changed. I have never posted a more controversial statement in my life on Instagram. I had so many people comment that it was not fall and I should not be looking at changing leaves. I don't post anything controversial on social media. I don't post about politics. I don't post about religion. I keep it real fresh and clean. And I was like, surely this picture of me near green leaves, just simply saying like the leaves have not changed, will not make anybody upset. Oh, it made some people upset.
It's so weird. I was one of those people before I moved to the land of Japan where I currently reside. If somebody mentioned the word fall too early, I would actually get upset. I'd be like, don't you say it. Do not say it. Like them saying, hey, fall is on its way. I saw the leaves have already changed colors up in Algonquin Park. And I'm like, no, don't you even say it. Like them saying it was somehow going to magic wand transform the colors of all the leaves in that area that day. And I actually have this conversation with people here. So again, Okinawa, subtropical. It doesn't really get cold here. It drops down to maybe 12 degrees Celsius for a week in February. And then the rest of the time, it is just beautiful here. I have this conversation with people where I tell them how much Canadians enjoy summer because it is so short, right? Like you don't even you just get into the groove of like going to the cottage or going to the lake or going for nice walks where you don't have to prepare for 30 minutes in advance. All of the layers of clothing that you will be required to wear to walk the dog. Like all of those things that you can do in summer, eating outside, drinking outside, all that fun stuff. You just get used to it. and then the rug is ripped out from underneath you. The leaves change colors. And for 4 months minimum, you are stuck indoors.
Well, and fall in Canada is also very short. Where we grew up anyway, you'd get like 3 weeks before snow starts. So people are really protective of that tiny sliver of fall that they get. Here, fall lasts like literally 6 months. I'm like, yeah, I want it to be fall. But the funny thing was, my comment was like, yep, the leaves are still green. I guess it's not fall. And every comment I got was, yeah, it's not fall. And I was like, so we agree then. We all agree it's not fall. That's what I was saying. We all agree.
So you were validating my statement.
Thank
This
you.
is why I put these things out there. You just state obvious things. It's now just the date. You're just going to start putting the date up.
If you think that I'm not going to go up there on Friday this week and take a picture of those yellow leaves, you got another thing coming, because they will be yellow on Friday. And I'll be like, well, what do we have here? Anyway, moral of the story, it's fall here in Utah. Beautiful leaves changing.
The best part about this one is definitely coming out well into fall.
I was right. I knew it was gonna happen.
Well, as always, we have a question, I'm sure.
What would you say was like your first like musical influence as a kid? Like, who would you say, what would it be? If you had like to pin it on like one specific moment where you were like, now I'm interested, what would it be?
2 doors down from where we lived on Dreyer Drive, there was a house where a woman that we called Granny Cooksey lived. Rest in peace, Granny Cooksey. Granny Cooksey was amazing. She was into like show tunes and Broadway. And I think she used to work as some kind of like Broadway something or other. And her daughter and her daughter's son, Chris, also lived in that house. And there was one day where I was walking past Granny Cooksey's house and Chris was in the driveway and he had these massive speakers and he was playing NWA Straight Outta Compton. And I walked past and it was like, I heard it like Straight Outta Compton. And then all of the words that follow, which I will not repeat because this is an adult podcast.
It's for adults.
This is an XXL podcast for adults. And so I walk past, I hear those words and I stop and I'm like, what is this? And he's like, this is NWA. And I'm like, what does that stand for? And he told me, I'm like, you can say that. He's like, you cannot. And I'm like, okay, okay, I like this. And so after that, I became extremely interested in hip hop. And I ended up getting my hands on a Snoop Dogg Doggy Style cassette because Dan had it and just fell in love, like absolutely fell in love with hip hop music and started digging through and going back and listening to a lot of hip hop. But I remember one day outside, I was wearing this jacket, this long green canvas jacket that Dad got for free from a friend who worked in a freezer as part of his job and had like a freezer jacket just laying around. So I like
could not track any more than it does.
So I'm outside in this canvas green freezer jacket, the hood up. I'm with 2 of my buddies and I'm rapping the Snoop Dogg version of Lottie Dottie, which of course is based on Slick Rick, but the Snoop Dogg version. And I'm like hand movements. I think I am so cool. And the 2 guys I was with didn't say anything, but apparently they went home and made fun of me for hours for rapping Snoop Dogg. I was in grade like 7. I was like 12 years old and I'm out there rapping Snoop Dogg. I thought I was the coolest person alive. At that time, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, Metallica, Megadeth, the Beavis and Butthead cassette tape soundtrack, whatever. That's what was extremely popular. And I was kind of into that as well, right? But really into hip hop music. 2 years later, did I not find those 2 same guys who were making fun of me in the street listening to Snoop Doggy Dogg? Do you think they apologized?
Did they have the jacket though?
No. They don't. Do not think for a second they had the plug like we had, giving away free freezer jackets to the community.
Gum out of the garbage.
I reached in the pockets. For sure, those pockets were jam-packed with garbage gum.
The Crispies would know. The
Crispies know. If you don't know, you are not a Crispy. But so I would say that's my first, like, I heard NWA. I was like, this is cool. And then from there, and even to this day, right? Like my playlists are just chock full of hip hop, old and new.
I think that kids, this is going to make me sound really old.
Kids these days. I don't know what accent that was. Kids these days.
In England, the kids like truly will not understand the weight of the family cassette player, CD player. When we were kids, we didn't have our own cassette players. Or if we did, they were crappy ones, like a little crappy Walkman or whatever. Or I used to actually listen to most of the music on my clock radio. It was a
Stop.
white clock radio. I would listen to the Top 6 at 6 every night on my clock radio. So if you wanted to listen to like something that didn't just come on by chance on the radio, we
Something
had to
other
use
something other than Casey
on
Kasem.
FM.
Sorry, I cut you off because I was just, my brain was searching for Casey Kasem's name. And I was like, what was his name? What was his name? I'm pretty sure it's Casey Kasem. Every Saturday, he would do like the global top 20.
But if you wanted to listen to something over and over again, or you wanted to listen to something that was like the music you wanted to listen to, it had to be on the family cassette player. And we had one giant cassette. And actually, after a while, we had a CD player too, not to brag. And everybody had to kind of listen to whatever you had at the same time. And I remember it was probably about the same time. I was in 6th grade because it was my 12th birthday. And I got some birthday money, probably from Annie Gale, let's be honest. And I took it to the mall. And remember when you would have to go to like an HMB and you would go into those listening booths? And you go into listening booths and listen to all the CDs that had just come out and pick from there. And I had never purchased like my own music before. And I was like, I'm going to do this. It's my 12th birthday. I got $20 in my pocket and I'm going to go in, and I listened to the listening booth. I came out of that HMV or whatever it was with a cassette of Collective Soul,
No.
which why I don't mind Collective Soul, but for Collective Soul to be my very first like foray into like music taste, I listened to one song on one of those listening machines and I was like, that's it. That's my whole personality. To the point that like maybe like 3 months after I bought the cassette tape, CDs came out and like CDs became popular. And I was like, I gotta get the CD. So I went and I bought the exact same CD of the cassette tape that I already owned because I felt like I was getting left out because I didn't have the CD version of Collective Soul.
And as a core fan,
I'm a soul head. What can I say? I've never listened to Collective Soul ever again.
A soul head is also the worst name possible for that fan club. All the soul heads out there.
Everybody who listens has a soul patch, 100%. And then my second part was then, I think in high school, we had a car that we lovingly termed the Ratmobile. Also only had cassettes, right?
Sorry. There was no cassette player in the Ratmobile. It was radio only. It was a 1988 Plymouth Sundance that shot windshield washer fluid onto the inside of the windshield.
Like that, you would drive and the person who was sitting shotgun had to wipe down the inside of the windshield with a paper towel because the defrost didn't work on it. And I remember still like, think of how much of a loser you'd have to be to drive into a school parking lot in a Plymouth Sundancer wiping it down with paper towels, but we would be listening so loudly to Beastie Boys Sabotage that we were like, we are the coolest people I've ever walked this earth. Like the confidence level was so high, and I attribute my confidence level mostly to listening to Beastie Boys a lot as a kid.
So I still listen to loud hip hop. When I'm by myself in the car, I have music very loud and I have the windows down because it's this instant credibility of like, this guy's cool.
Oh, absolutely.
He's 42 and listening to DaBaby.
Watch me drive. Wait until you get to start picking Noah up from high school, because I need high school kids at this. I'm 40 and I'm like, I need them to think that I'm cool. I need to pull up into that parking lot and everybody like to Andrew, like, is that your mom? I'm like, I know.
No, it's not it's not. I don't know her. He's just walking past.
Walks right.
I had a membership to, or I had a subscription to Spotify, and Spotify released this feature called AI DJ. So based on your musical tastes and what you listen to most frequently, it then puts together playlists that it thinks that you will like based on your listening behavior. And it also, I think it chooses a voice to match your listening preferences. So like mine chose this like New York City DJ style, like yo, 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 yo. All right, that's my New York. All the New York City DJs that are listening to this are like, what? It's like, yo, dog, we chose this one for you. We got some fire straight from the streets. Like, that's kind of like what I get. And so as we're driving every day to school, I let Noah be the DJ. I'm always like, DJ Noah. And I hand her my phone and she puts on like Disney music. She puts on,
Let it go.
yeah, she puts on like Japanese children's songs, which vary in tone and lyric. Actually, all songs do. I don't know why I went out of my way to say that. Every song.
Music be varying.
Music be varying. So so there's this one day I'm tasked with going out to run some errands by myself. I get in the car, I get out of the neighborhood, I put the windows down, I select AI DJ, and it's like, yo, dog, these are fresh off the streets. We've got some music that you've been listening to on repeat for weeks. And I'm like, yeah, I roll down the windows. I pull out to a red light. These two like 20-something-year-old girls pull up beside me in a convertible just as the music starts playing. And it's a Japanese children's song that's like, it translated is like, the monster's underwear is really strong. It's really strong underwear. It's really strong. And I'm like, no. And I'm like trying to skip it, but it's now put together the playlist of connected songs. And it goes right into like a Ghibli, for anyone that knows what Ghibli, a Ghibli song is like, Totoro, Totoro. And I'm like, no, just trying to skip every song. It's just nothing but children's music. And then I just roll the windows up. That day, I canceled my Spotify subscription and went with Apple Music. I'm like, never again will I be betrayed by this AI DJ.
Yeah, very, very eclectic taste in music. But I think that's what happens when you have 7 people in the same house sharing the same cassette player. So we were listening to Mariah Carey. We were listening to Spin Doctors. We were listening to Daniel. Spin Doctors. Daniel listened to a band called The Real McCoy a lot. And it was just like one of those like Euro techno bands that talked a lot through their music. Like, and so we just kind of had to put up, Dallin only listened to S Club 7. So I feel like I have like a very like balanced taste in music. And I take high pride in that. I'm like, she can do it all. Doesn't matter.
I remember being deathly afraid that mom was going to find my NWA or Ice Cube, right? Like if she found my Ice Cube cassette tape, like my life was over. So there'd be times like getting ready in the morning for school. I would have the volume up just enough so that, you know, as you get upstairs, you wouldn't be able to hear the obscene adult XXL lyrics that were pouring from my speakers.
The thing is, at that age, I didn't even clock what any of these songs were about. I remember perfectly walking through the hallowed halls of Exeter High with my Discman in my ears, listening
the whole
to
Discman.
The whole Discman, just jammed it right in there. Listening to NERD's Brain on repeat, and I was probably 30 before I was like, oh my gosh, what was I listening to and who gave that to me?
Yeah, that goes for like any of the R&B also of that era. You get into adulthood, you become a grown-up, and you listen to it and you're like, oh my gosh, this was on the radio.
Not only at the radio, they played this at school dances. They're playing too close at dances. I can't listen to it as an adult without like, I'm like, this is too much. I'm sorry, I can't. And
this truly is XXL.
It's XXL, and we were listening to much music, video dance parties in the gym at the high school. Okay, do we actually want to talk about a set of siblings today?
Let's do that.
I chose these specifically just because of the ages, and I feel like we really relate to them because they are dead on our exact ages, and it's William and Harry, the princes.
Oh!
So when they were on my list of siblings, then I was looking into them. They are actually our exact ages. William was born in 82 and Harry was born in 84. And so I think it's impossible to not overlay then our entire life stories. I do feel like I'm royalty, but it's impossible to not relate because everything that they've done up to this point is very, like, you can see how they would feel about it. And also so much of where they are now is also because of the partners that they've chosen to bring into the family. And I think that definitely has an effect on the way siblings interact with each other. Like when you start adding partners in the mix, even siblings that get along really well. Like for instance, I hate Seiko. No, I'm totally kidding. You know, I love Seiko. Seiko's the best. But yeah, when you bring partners in, it changes the dynamics of things. I think in our case, the partners change the dynamic for the better because our partners have really like calmed us down a little bit. And I think that's helped our sibling relationships across the board, but we'll get into it. So Prince William's born in 82 and Harry's born in 84. They're exactly our exact same age. Prince William is born as the Prince of Wales, and he is first in line currently to the British monarchy. I don't know why we're going back to the British monarchy. It just seems right. I just really love talking about the British monarchy. One thing that people need to understand about Canada too is that it's still very British. And so growing up, like we were very aware of the British monarchy. We were very aware of the princes and Princess Diana and Prince Charles and all that. Obviously, Diana, what I was reading, Diana really wanted them to have like a normal childhood. And so she worked really hard. She brought them to McDonald's, which, what a lady of the people. She brought them to Disney World. She wanted them to grow up normally. Of course, in 97, she passes away. William is 15 and Harry is 12. And I was watching a documentary about this, and it was saying that this was the first time the two boys were kind of like sacrificed for the monarchy, in which they were asked to walk behind the funeral procession, which really hadn't been done, but they knew it would be a really sympathetic look. Sentiments towards the royal family were not good because Princess Diana and Prince Charles had divorced by that time, and everybody was firmly Team Diana.
Were they supposed to be at the front? I don't understand the symbolism there. So
they were not supposed to be in the procession really at all. They shouldn't have been out in the public. They were kids. They were 15 and 12. And so the royal family knows that this engenders a lot of sympathy towards the family if they bring out William and Harry and kind of trot them out. And I remember watching the funeral. I remember being down in the basement when all of this happened, watching this on TV. And I remember like it was the saddest thing ever to watch these two boys walk behind the funeral procession of their mom. Both of them go to the same boarding school. I think it's Eton that they end up going to, which is where pretty much any royal goes to. And of course, first William goes and then Harry goes. A lot of this is from the book Spare as well. We don't really know anything about like William's take on things because he's never written a tell-all book about this. So a lot of what I know is kind of skewed from what Harry is saying. Okay. So one of the things he says is William goes away to school and Harry goes away to school, and they've kind of lost touch since their mom has passed away, and Harry's excited because he feels like they're going to have a chance to reconnect as siblings, as brothers at school. And when he gets there, it's exactly what you would think would happen, which is the older brother completely ignores the existence of the younger brother and is like, be cool, don't address me in public. And that's exactly what happens.
Wow. So that just transcends regular people and right in
any person. Yeah, any older brother knows what it feels like to have the younger brother raining on their parade at school, especially when you've like curated like this is my personality, this is what I'm like, and to have your younger brother come in and be like, no, that never happened, that's not what you said. Both of them eventually join the army, and it seems like they kind of go through a period where they've graduated from school, they both join the Air Force, and they're both working on these things, and they get along really, really well. But that's when they begin to bring partners into the mix, and that starts to change the dynamic. William and Kate start dating in 2003. So really, when you think about it, only 6 years after Diana died, it seems like he grew up. In my head, it was a much longer time. But William and Kate start dating in 2003, and they kind of like are still doing okay. Harry's kind of like a third wheel to them. They're seen out a lot together. They actually even start a charity together, like a mental health charity, and they're doing a lot of this charitable work together. William and Kate get engaged in Africa in 2010, and it's really significant that it's Africa.
Why is that?
Because Diana did a lot of her humanitarian work in Africa. Then William and Harry they travel to Africa a lot. A lot of their humanitarian work and charitable work is done in Africa. And then William gets engaged to Kate in Africa. Like this is like their special place. I believe it was in Kenya where they got engaged. They get married in 2011. 300 million global viewers are watching these two people.
That is insane.
I truly can't imagine. Again, my greatest wish is to die in obscurity. The 300 million people watching you say your vows, and it sounds like a nightmare to me.
Yeah, I'll pass.
And I remember like there was even like Harry and William are standing at the front of, I think they got married at Westminster, right? It's right before Kate makes her appearance, and Harry's seen mouthing, wait until you see her to William. And it's like this super cute moment. And everybody's like, brothers, they are the sweetest. I can't believe like these two. Like Harry's as happy for William is to get married. He loves Kate like a sister. That was the narrative that was kind of pushed out. When I read Spare, though, Harry also says that that was kind of a narrative that wasn't necessarily true, like that was kind of planned, and that he wasn't really the best man at the wedding. William had two other friends, so the best man, but like for appearances, it needed to be Harry and William standing up there together, you know, putting on this united front.
And of course, everyone's just looking for something to confirm what they want to believe about the siblings for the story, right? Like people want to believe that Harry is this extremely supportive sibling who just is so excited for his older brother to be getting married. The thing that we forget, we talked about this in the Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen episode. We talked about how at the end of the day, these are regular people. And I know this sounds so obvious, but at the end of the day, these are regular people that still have the sibling dynamic that they're trying to work through. And that's their base. Their base isn't royalty. That's something that they've been trained in, that they've had to learn. It's not something that's just instilled in them on like a DNA level. Of course it is because of their bloodline, but I don't mean like that. But you strip away all of those things, these are still just two brothers.
And it's like, and not only that's like older brother, youngest brother.
Yeah.
And they are very much like the classic older brother. William is very much trained to be very responsible and in charge of things. And Harry's kind of left to do, you know, that's why his whole book is called Spare, is because Charles had an heir and a spare, which is what royal families always want, is that they have one person that's going to be the heir to the throne and one who's an extra in case the heir dies. And that conceit of the heir and spare has been hundreds of years in the making in the monarchy. And so Harry gets to kind of do whatever he wants because he knows that when push comes to shove, it's not going to be him that leads.
Sure. He's kind of off the hook for most of the things because he isn't the heir. He is the spare.
He is the spare. Also, I think it's also significant that William uses Diana's ring to propose to Kate, and that's what the ring she wears as well as her wedding ring.
Really?
Like he got that. And in the book Spare, Harry's like, I was okay with it, but there's also like the underlying thing of like, why did William get to have, you know, one of the most important pieces left over from Diana? So there was like kind of, you know, they on the outside, it looks like everybody's getting along really, really well. On the inside, it's starting to crack a little. It starts to crack especially badly when Harry meets Meghan Markle and they start dating. And I think, again, growing up in Canada and things being still fairly British there, especially in things like manners and outward displays of things like Justin and I have had this conversation. Justin is American and he is always like surprised at the way Canadians display like patriotism. It's not particularly flashy. Like we're proud to be Canadian. We celebrate Canada Day, but it's not like, I don't think I've ever met someone who's flown a Canadian flag out the back of their truck, which is something that I see daily with the American flag here in the town in which I live. So it's just like so I can see how when you have one married in that is exactly what you were expecting and exactly what you were raised to want, and then you have someone who was raised, actually she was raised in Canada and America, but Meghan Markle comes in and she's kind of like, yeah, represent, but she kind of comes in and she doesn't respect the throne the way that someone in England would. So it talks about like the first time she met the Queen, she goes up and like gives her a hug, and they were like literally William and Harry are like, we haven't hugged her in 20 years. Like you can't just like, and for all intents and purposes to her, she was like, I'm just meeting your grandma. And they're trying to explain to her like, it's not
but you're also like, not.
Like you're not, it's actually the Queen of England. And so she starts to kind of rub other people the wrong way. And I mean, a lot of it is just racism, but a lot of it is also just, let's call a spade a spade. Harry and Meghan get engaged in 2017. And William and Kate release a statement that says they're really happy for them, but also behind closed doors, they're really trying to talk him out of, like, first of all, Meghan Markle's a celebrity here. She's in a TV show and she's American. She's mixed. They're trying to they're like, this isn't what like the monarchy is. So
is that
this
in the
is kind
book?
Of crazy. Yeah, 100%.
So Harry says that he is trying to be convinced, discouraged. So he is actively being discouraged from pursuing Meghan as a partner.
Mm-hmm. And Yeah, and formally. And in 2015, so just before this, Harry goes to Africa and is kind of like, I love Africa and I kind of want to make it my cause. And it causes a problem between him and William because William and Kate are like, oh, like we already said Africa was for us. And so they start
You've already claimed that? Whoa, 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 whoa. You cannot say that.
Guys, it starts like a little turf war between the brothers because William and Kate are like, Africa's like our special place, and William's like, I kind of want it to be our special place too. And they're like, no, thank you. So Harry and Meghan get engaged. They are traveling. I think they get engaged. They go to Africa at least when they're dating, and they kind of like make it like, this is our special place, is Africa, and like that annoys them. Harry says there's this sheet that they get when they are together as a family, as a royal family, and the sheet is basically a ledger of their charitable doings, how they look in the public. And so
like what? Sorry, like a grade of like
yes.
all of their public appearances, or
basically a spreadsheet
just
that
a
says
record
things that of how they look to the public, of the charitable things they've been doing. And it's very clear that if one of them is winning, the other person's losing. Like it can't. There's a
score on the far right.
No, for sure. And so they'll go to like Christmas, and it's like, okay, well, Merry Christmas. Here's your score. You're not doing great. People don't like this. So it bred a lot of anger between all the members. Even it said even between like Charles and his own sons. Like Charles was willing to sacrifice sometimes his own sons because he needed to get a better score on his like professional royal sheet, which is crazy.
I picture it really long table. Everybody's lined at the table and there's somebody reading off the scores and telling people who needs to work harder or how many points they have to make up, going like, all right, everybody, we are going into Christmas dinner and let's go through the scores. Prince Harry, you are 5 points behind Prince William. Charles, you're up by 7 points. Little sons, you got 13 points to make up. You need to do something spectacular at the next family gathering.
All in the driest butler British accent you've ever heard.
I expect a giant scoreboard as well with the numbers that flip like an old school train terminal or bus terminal.
It's like Hunger Games where there's just like a shot in the air every time someone does something good.
The leaderboard changes.
Oh, no. So Harry and Meghan get married in 2018. It's really hard not to compare the two weddings, for sure. I think this would be a good time to mention that we did not go to each other's weddings. Like, also, it's very much like the graduation thing where it didn't seem like a big deal. And I think people would think it was a big deal, but our family doesn't think it's a big deal.
No, I mean, yes, I totally agree that for us, it just didn't, I don't want to say it didn't matter, but it also didn't matter. Like, we also realized we were getting married in Japan. This is where we had our wedding ceremony. Mom and dad were there. And even with Seiko, like, it was just her family. And that was it. I think for us, it doesn't change the dynamic. Do you know what I mean?
No. Yeah.
And I never wanted a big wedding. I never looked at it like, let's get 300 people together. I have a hard time interacting with that many people with the obligation. Okay, you have to go and pretend to be interested in what that person says for 13 minutes or 30 minutes. So for us, it was like, let's just make this happen. Let's get married. And you know what? We will be with our family every weekend for the foreseeable future. I think we're okay if they're not all here for this day.
I think with like a Harry and William situation, the pressure on optics would put me right over the edge, because if I knew that many people were watching all the time, like that's extremely stressful to me. When we had 2 wedding receptions, like one here in Utah on our actual wedding day, and then we also went up to, and you guys were at the Canadian one. And so to me, it like was just, I was able to be like, these are 2 different groups of people. To be honest, I don't love when all of our families are together anyway. It's extremely stressful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's hard not to compare the Meghan and Kate of it all, and I think that's what everybody does naturally, because you have these 2 brothers, they both marry these women that are brought into the family, and of course, like, everybody's natural inclination is to be like, it's Kate versus Meghan. And a lot of what Harry says that Kate is kind of stereotypical British in the fact that like she's very proper, and that can come off as cold, especially to someone who is raised in a North American culture where it's all hugs and lay it out on the line. Yeah,
shoulder punches. She's there shoulder punching the queen. Get one, boom, punches in her arm, shatters her shoulder.
Real casual. we're real casual. Kate and William start having kids, as do William and Harry, which also William and Harry. William
I love
and
that
Harry
you said that like they
children
picked, like they
together.
started taking tennis lessons. So they start having kids, just popping them out.
As one does, you start having kids, and every time that William and Kate have a child, it pushes Harry farther down the line of succession because their children will inherit. Yes, exactly. They
Sorry, was that
will inherit.
Was that your gun noise?
Okay, well, I was raised in Canada. We didn't play guns. We are peaceful people. So it just pushes them farther and farther down the line of succession to the point that Prince Charles at one point questions if Harry and Meghan and their family should even have like security. They're which is hurtful, right? Your own dad is being like, honestly, if you died, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal because there's 6 other people in front of you. Like that's hurtful to hear. And that's when Harry and Meghan start taking a few steps back. They released their statement in 2020 that they are stepping back from their formal duties as what they call senior members of the royal family. So they are the Duke and Duchess of, there's Sussex, right? There's Cambridge and Sussex. I think Cambridge is Kate and William. And
that is correct. I've
Harry
got the
and Meghan
Wikipedia pages
Okay.
open as you speak,
Yeah.
as I normally do, to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. It is William,
Got it,
Prince of
Sussex.
Wales, and it is Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex.
Okay, so in 2020, they're like, we're not going to be active members of the royal family. And in the book Spare, Harry says they didn't tell the royal family they were going to be releasing this statement, and it throws them into this crazy, publicity. We don't know what to do with them. They have Harry and Meghan come to the palace, and they give them 5 choices of what they can do from now on. It's like basically 5 levels of like, number 1 is you rescind your statement and you come back to the family. And number 5 is you're cut off from the family. And there's
And somewhere in the middle
between.
is a neighborhood Dickie D.
Dickie D. No one's gonna know what a Dickie D is unless
Dickie
you
D.
grew up on Dreyer Drive.
Dickie D.
Explain.
A Dickie D is this guy. I'm sure they existed in other places, but they weren't called the Dickie D. But it was this bicycle that had a freezer on the front of it that was filled with popsicles. And the person in charge of the Dickie D in summer months, all 2 of them, would ride the bicycle around the neighborhood, hitting this little there was 4 bells on the handlebar, and it would just ding this bell through the neighborhood, and you would know that the Dickie D is here, and you would go outside with your $1 to buy a popsicle from the Dickie D.
To buy a popsicle, like one of those creamy popsicles that look like a ghost with like gumballs, but like one of the gumballs, they were supposed to be eyes, and one was like droopy.
They've been refrozen like
only
6 times.
We also had like a little chant that we would sing when they drove by, which is Dickie D, Dickie Dum, shove your ice cream up your butt.
And then we went and we bought ice cream from that person.
You know when like someone's just trying to make a living and you just harass them for no reason? That's what we were doing.
And kids just ruined it, by the way. Kids ruined that profession. It no longer exists like a blacksmith. There's probably only like 1 left because people would go and just rob the Dickie D with BB guns, and the Dickie D could no longer earn a living. So now there's just 1 lone Dickie D. And if you find him, give him all your money.
Okay,
He's a ghost.
In 2021, this is off the rails. They actually, in rescinding their senior royal roles, they lose out on $2.3 million, which is what Charles gave them as their like stipend as being royals. And so they hate the job enough that they're like, please no more $2.3 million, daddy. Like, we just want to be free. In 2020, that's when they do the Oprah interview, which is kind of what blows the top
Cover right off.
I don't know why I can't remember simple idioms when we do this podcast. I forget everything that I've ever heard and how a human speaks. Blows the top right off of this whole thing because they talk about, Meghan Markle talks about the racism she's experienced as a royal family member. They talk about Charles asking if they even need security at this point anymore, and they talk about how hurt they are. And I think that interview effectively shuts down any kind of chance that Harry and William are going to make amends at that point. William right to his head.
Right to his head.
He is a classic royal, and they had this saying that they would never complain, never explain. And that's what their job as a royal family member is to do. And William takes that very seriously. Well, Harry definitely nonstop complains and explains. Like, that's kind of what
Writes a tell-all book. He also quiet quit the royal family. Him and Megan just
To be
quiet. They're
fair.
quiet quitting for years, and then finally like, I don't think they're getting the message. Should we release a statement?
Should
we go
we
on Oprah?
talk to Oprah about it? But also, like, that's something that a youngest child of a family gets to do. Like, they can complain and explain while the oldest child, like, has no other choice to just, like, continue doing their duty nonstop. And I think that's very much like William and Kate. Like, this is their jobs. This is the gig. They were born royal. This is what they have to do. Harry writes Spare, which makes everything so much worse, because not only is it about everything they talked about Oprah, it's all about how Harry has all these feelings and has never been able to express them in the royal family, just kills every emotion that's ever been floated by. I just think about like what it would be like to be the partners in this scenario, and like would I be a Kate, would I be a Meghan? And I think I'd be a Kate, just because I'm a martyr and I'm a quiet, much like the royal family, we have also been taught to never complain. Explain a lot, but we complain.
Start a podcast and explain everything about your upbringing publicly.
We start a podcast to explain why we're not allowed to complain is what we did. So I can see both sides big time. I just imagine our partners coming into our families and trying to navigate even a family dinner without just wanting to explode. I can't imagine the magnification of that in a royal family setting, where especially these two brothers are at odds constantly. I do think that's nice about, like, I don't think Seiko and Renee, Daniel's partner, are really like, who's it gonna be? Who's going to be the heir to this Porter family throne? Like, they truly do not care. And I love that about them.
Well, it's mainly because we haven't implemented a scoreboard. So I think what we need to do at Christmas this year is let's get a scoreboard and let's see how the dynamics change then.
Make a spreadsheet of every nice thing that anybody's done for anybody.
This is really good, Bonnie. No, it's really delicious, Bonnie.
Here's the problem, though, is like, I'm a female in this family.
You are.
And I am a female. People have told me that before. And I always say that, like, I'm not always the nicest person, especially with our family, and it's going to have to be Seiko that takes care of them. And so I have to do everything in my power to keep Seiko in the picture, loving our family, loving everything about it, because we are nowhere without her. She will have to take care of mom and dad. I'm not nice enough to do it. I don't have it in me. So Terror 2022, that's when the Queen dies, and it's one of the first public appearances that all four, that they're all together as like presenting a united front. Unfortunately, right after that, it looks like they're actually going to make amends, but right after that, Harry and Meghan they release their Netflix documentary, which is just like every time they kind of get close to being good again, it's like Harry and Meghan are like, hey, one more thing, I would like to explain how I've been wronged here. And so it's the Oprah interview, then it's the book, then it's the Netflix trailer, which ends up going nowhere.
It's also the Spotify rap single, which is just a 3-minute diss track against William that randomly showed up on my Spotify AI DJ. They're like, this just in from Prince Harry. It's called Things Are Getting Hairy.
Stop, especially because he did have that scandal where there were pictures of him nude in Las Vegas, and I don't know why the word Harry just reminded me of it. Not that I've seen the pictures.
Which reminds me,
Harry, Spare is released in 2023. And in March 2024, that's when Kate, and remember when everybody was like, where's Kate? Where's Kate? And she announced that she'd actually been battling cancer. Harry and Meghan find out about it in the official television appearance that Kate does. So they do not know that she is battling cancer until everybody else finds about it. I did like a search on most recent like news stories about Harry and William, and the closest I could find is like they were in New York at the same time, but they're not actually speaking.
But one was in JFK. One was in LaGuardia.
Truly. And they're just like ships passing in the night. They have really not a lot to do with each other. Eventually, William will become king. As soon as Charles dies, that's next in line. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Interesting. Like I say, eventually one of us is going to die, and we're going to have to show up to the funeral. And it's going to be this whole big thing.
Unless Christmas is a real disaster.
Unless we treat it like weddings and graduations, in which case
don't show up.
It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, not a big deal.
Are you going to that? No, I know. It's fine.
Well, I find that
next time.
Weddings and funerals, they're really awkward because very few people go to a wedding or a funeral, and it's about the people there. It's always about the person. It's always about you, right? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Where am I going to sit? Who am I going to see? What am I going to wear? Like, I may have said wear twice, but all of those things become about you, right? And you go there worried about how you're going to look, how you're going to sound, who you're going to talk to, all of those things, what you're going to give, what you're going to receive. And it just takes away from all of it. So my philosophy is just don't go.
Let's, if we could send a message out there to William and Harry, like, guys, take the pressure off. You don't need to do all this stuff. You're doing too much. Relax a little. See each other at Christmas. It's not a big deal. You catch on the flip flop, as we say.
Catch you on the flip flop.
And that's all we know about them to this point. And I guess we could do an update podcast if they ever actually become friends again.
We're going to have to do that. And I think also very much like the Mary-Kate and Ashley episode, this is all just us speculating, mostly you speculating and me chiming in along the way, because we really don't know what's going on behind closed doors other than there's a giant scoreboard keeping track of every public move.
And a scathing biography written
by one of them.
One of them who is like, things are not great. So I think we can extrapolate what we can.
So before we go into the unhinged text from a family member this week, I do just want to point out something that I thought was kind of interesting and does have an overlap with us, kind of, because we want to make this about us. Prince Harry and Meghan first appeared together in public at the Invictus Games in, drumroll please, Toronto.
Oh, I was like, Africa!
Ajax, Ontario.
Well, do you know Invictus Games? I did read a quote that said William's pretty surprised because Harry is the one who started the Invictus Games, and that got his score sheet up really high because it's literally just like Olympics for veterans. And like William is like on the cusp of like, I'm happy for him, but also like I wish I would have thought of it first. Like, it's kind of annoying that he gets to have all the glory for the Invictus Games. So it like continues to be just kind of a sticking point for two of them.
No, I'm happy. No, I'm happy for you. No, I'm really happy for you. No,
it's great. It's great. It's like when mom like brags about one of us to the other person's like, cool, great. I'm
so happy to hear.
Like, he's doing really well. Like, okay. Thanks.
All right. Unhinged text message, and then we got to wrap this up.
Well, it actually happened this morning because we were texting.
This is fresh.
It was fresh. I woke up literally just in a cold sweat because you had texted me. Again, we are on completely different time zones and constantly texting each other while the other person is sleeping for 8 hours. So then you don't get a text back for 8 hours. And you had texted me to tell me that pretty much a lot of our recordings were almost unusable because of I had screwed up some settings. There were settings that I was supposed to click and I didn't click them, and I felt horrible.
Well, that wasn't the intention, first of all, to clear that. That wasn't the intention. But in the biography that I'm currently penning, there will be a chapter about this.
About how all I needed to do was click one button. I didn't click the button.
Yeah.
And I was, in my head, I was like, the past 6 podcasts would just throw them in the garbage. We are terrible at this. I'm quitting. We're never doing this again. Why did we think we could do this? And the thing was, you were taking responsibility for it. And because you had listened to and assumed, yeah. You had been very understanding. So 5 points to Gryffindor. And I said that I felt bad. And basically I was like, just put a disclaimer at the front of the episode that said like, look, we totally screwed up. And I said, the good news is we have done everything possibly that we could have done wrong. So there can't be anything left. And you said, there are still many, many things that we can do wrong. Like mention Nazis in every episode. And I will say there was a scandal where Prince Harry dressed up as a Nazi.
No.
And I was going to bring it up.
For the record, if you're going to cancel anybody on this, it's got to be one of us, okay? Jacqueline, I will spare you. And by spare, I mean sacrifice you. You are the one that needs to get canceled.
Spare and heir. You're the heir.
You're the spare. All right? I can carry this by myself if I need to. We might have to have open auditions.
Well, you have 3 other brothers to choose from. That's the nice thing about having an heir and a spare and a spare
and a spare and a spare and a spare and a spare and a spare. Well, as always, thank you. That was a lot of fun. And
stay crispy, my friends.
Stay crispy.